Even though we like to think of ourselves as rational beings, if we were honest with ourselves, even for a moment, we would see that life does not run on precise calculations, but on the faint tremors that rise from the deepest part of the heart. There are mornings when you wake up and somehow know you must leave a place you've stayed for far too long, even without a clear reason. There are moments when you trust someone from the very first glance, long before your mind can explain why. And there are nights when you can't fall asleep, simply because your heart is whispering something your mind cannot quite grasp. We often take pride in our intelligence, yet the choices that shape who we become rarely come from the bright, logical corners of our thinking. They come from the softest places inside us. Americans like to say that the heart always knows its way home, while the mind keeps running, chasing worries with no end in sight. When you stand between two paths and can't decide, the mind will lay out endless lists of benefits, risks, and possibilities. But in the end, you still take a step toward that small, fragile feeling, like a gentle knock on the door of your soul, telling you to choose whatever brings you peace. We live in a noisy age, one where everyone tells you to be logical, practical, strong as steel, and unbreakable. But no one teaches you how to listen to the tender corner of your heart, the place that quietly decides who you are and who you long to become. Have you noticed that sometimes you miss someone, not because they're perfect, but because they made you feel seen, understood, allowed to be yourself? Logic has no explanation for moments like that, because the heart speaks a different language, one science cannot measure and cannot deny. When Pascal wrote that the heart has its reasons, which reason does not know, he wasn't praising blind emotion. He was naming something deeply human. Our wounds, our hopes, our quiet dreams that follow us everywhere, yet remain unspoken. And maybe you've been there too, standing in front of a mirror, looking at a version of yourself that doesn't need to be strong or pretend to be fine, only longing to hear that everything will eventually be okay. In those moments, the mind grows silent and the heart begins to speak. It speaks through feelings, memories, and things that do not yet have names. It reminds you of something you may have forgotten, that we were not made to live on reason alone. We need a place to return to, a belief to hold on to, someone to lean against. And sometimes it takes just 1 second to realize that the most important things in life are often the ones we cannot see. And when you finally hear that quiet, honest voice inside you, you'll understand that the journey back to yourself isn't far away at all. It begins the very moment you dare to listen to your own heart for the first time. There are nights when you lie in your familiar room, surrounded by absolute silence, yet it feels as if a whole shadow is sitting beside you. It is not the darkness outside, but the darkness inside your own heart, carrying fears you have spent your whole life trying to avoid. People fear ghosts, disasters, the unknown. But the fear that cuts the deepest is the moment you look straight at yourself and realize you are far more fragile than the stories you tell to feel strong. Americans say that nighttime is the most honest mirror because it reflects every worry you hide during the day. When the lights go off and every voice fades, your mind has nowhere left to run, and that is when a person fears themselves the most. Have you ever felt it? Lying there, staring at the ceiling, and every memory you tried to bury begins rising like bubbles from deep water. Old mistakes, unfinished dreams, words you wish you could take back, people you wish you could hold one more time. We keep ourselves busy, not because we are strong, but because we are terrified of silence, terrified that if we stop even for a minute, our hearts will speak truths we are not ready to hear. Some people only cry at night, when the world is asleep and no one can see them. In those moments, a person becomes their truest self, their most vulnerable self, and strangely, their most beautiful self, because they are no longer pretending to be anything else. Pascal once said that humanity is both great and wretched, and you understand this most clearly during nights like these. Great because we can feel, reflect, and confront a loneliness no other creature knows. Wretched because even with all our understanding, we cannot stop our hearts from trembling. There are nights when you feel so small that a single deeper breath could shatter you. Nights when time seems to stop while sadness grows quietly inside you. And nights when you realize the thing you fear most is not the darkness itself, but the fact that you do not know what you are searching for in this life. Yet these very nights are the ones that make us grow. They show us we are not as alone as we think, because every heart is fighting battles no one else can see. If you are listening to this and feel something inside you being touched, leave a gentle comment below and tell me you have lived through a night like that too. And remember, that feeling does not make you weak. It makes you human, because only those who dare to face their own fear can truly find their light when morning comes. There is a truth almost everyone knows, but very few are brave enough to look at directly. Most of our fears do not come from the world outside, but from the things we avoid inside ourselves. We stay busy not because we love the pace of life, but because silence forces us to face questions we are not ready to answer. Americans often say people do not fear the truth. They fear the feeling the truth brings, and it is more accurate than we want to admit. We stay in jobs that drain us because quitting would mean admitting we chose wrong. We remain in relationships long after the love is gone, because ending them forces us to confront a loneliness we are not sure we can bear. And some nights we lie awake not because something happened, but because we know we are not living the life our heart truly wants. Human beings have a frightening ability to deceive themselves. We tell ourselves we are fine, that if we just push a little harder, things will eventually change, that this emptiness is only temporary. We become so familiar with our own pain that we begin to treat it as normal, like a shadow that never leaves, but that we refuse to turn around and see clearly. But the truth does not disappear just because we ignore it. It waits. It stands quietly beside us, patient, until we are tired enough to see our lives with honest eyes. And when we finally confront it, the thing we fear most is not the truth itself, but the realization that we have lived too long inside limits we created for ourselves. We see that we could leave what hurts us, but we do not. We see that we could start over, but we hold on to what is familiar because it feels safe, even when it makes us small. Then one day, you understand that truth does not come to break you. It comes to free you. It arrives to remind you that you deserve a different life, a better version of yourself, a path you once believed was not meant for you. Truth can be cold, but it never betrays you. It is the small light that guides you out of the darkness you have been hiding in. And the moment you find the courage to look at it directly, you realize that the real fear was never change itself, but spending your entire life inside a story that was never truly yours. People often believe that reason is what guides every choice we make, but the truth is far more complicated. Reason is like a skilled soldier, always analyzing, always alert, always trying to protect us from making mistakes. It lists risks, calculates outcomes, builds fences around our fears so we won't crash into pain. But the heart is the general who gives the final command. It does not speak in numbers or logic. It speaks in what makes us feel alive, what makes us want, what makes us tremble with recognition. Americans like to say that reason walks in straight lines, while the heart travels in curves that only make sense when you look back. There are things reason tells us are wrong, yet the heart whispers they are exactly right for who we are in that moment. And there are decisions that look perfect on paper, but the heart refuses to move even an inch. We try to force ourselves to live by what seems reasonable, but reason alone cannot give us peace. Sometimes we choose the good job, the safe path, the stable relationship. But each night we feel ourselves shrinking a little more, like something inside is quietly dimming. That is when reason has completed its duty, but the heart is fighting alone. The strongest people are not those who feel no fear, but those who learn to listen to both voices inside them. The voice of reason warning them, and the voice of the heart leading them. Reason tells us not to be reckless, but the heart reminds us that life does not offer many chances to live true to ourselves. And when those two forces collide, we learn the most important lesson of all, that we do not have to choose one over the other. We only need to understand which path helps us become a better version of ourselves. Reason keeps us grounded. The heart pulls us forward. And when the two finally move together, that is when we find the path that truly belongs to us. People often assume that intelligent individuals are stronger, more rational, better at protecting themselves. But the truth is quite the opposite. The more a person understands, the more easily they can be hurt, because their mind refuses to leave any wound alone. It analyzes, digs, questions, and turns a simple ache into a web of thoughts that grow heavier with time. There is an old saying that the deeper the water, the quieter it becomes. But beneath that stillness lie currents no one can see. Intelligent people rarely allow themselves to show emotion. They try to stay calm as if it were armor, yet that very armor isolates them. They know exactly why something hurts. They can explain the cause, the pattern, the consequence. Yet they cannot escape it because their reasoning traps them inside their own thoughts. A single careless sentence can echo in their mind for hours. A distant look can trouble them for days. And the more they analyze, the smaller they feel. They do not trust easily, do not lean on others easily, and do not admit exhaustion easily, but deep down they long to be understood more than anyone. Intelligent people are vulnerable not because they are weak, but because their hearts are too sensitive to details others overlook. They see meaning in small things, hear what is not said, and feel what lies beneath the surface. Sometimes they wish they could be a bit more naive, a bit more carefree, just to live without carrying such heavy thoughts. Yet this sensitivity is also their beauty. It makes them live more deeply, love more sincerely, and understand the world in a way many never will. And though they often blame themselves for feeling too much, they do not realize that the world becomes softer, kinder, and more human because of hearts like theirs. There are moments in life when a person has no hope lays left, and in those moments, we do not turn to reason or comforting cliches. We turn to a small, quiet place inside ourselves. A place built from all the exhaustion we have carried through the years. An old saying goes that the heart always returns to where it feels safest, and it has never been wrong. When you lose your sense of direction, when everything that once felt solid becomes fragile, you will find yourself reaching for the simple things, the things that do not demand strength or pretend that you are fine. It might be a quiet afternoon, a familiar street, an old habit, or a memory you tucked away long ago. The more desperate a person becomes, the more they long for a peace that asks for nothing in return, a peace that does not require achievement or perfection, only the willingness to breathe and feel it. When faith cracks, we search for the things that once kept us standing, even if only for a moment. We remember the feeling of someone holding our hand, the sound of a laugh that once made life less heavy, the nights we believed that tomorrow could change everything. We return to these places not because we are weak, but because they remind us that we have survived what we once thought would break us. And sometimes, those old memories become the bridge that carries us forward. Every person has a soft corner in their soul, a place that keeps the things that never change no matter how far life pulls us away. That corner is where we return when our dreams collapse and our hopes fall behind us. But the most beautiful part is this: no matter how deep the despair, the heart quietly keeps searching for a way out. It looks for a small light, a gentle word, a fragile belief just strong enough to keep us from sinking. The truth is, no one lives their entire life in despair. Even when there is nothing left to hold on to, a person will find one small reason to keep going, because inside each of us there is a seed of hope stronger than we ever imagined. And the place we return to in our weakest moments is the place that tells us what we truly need to step into tomorrow. There are moments in life when everything stops as if time itself has paused. Moments when the mind can no longer pretend to be strong, and the heart finally speaks a truth we have avoided for far too long. It is rarely dramatic. Sometimes it comes in a simple sentence, an accidental glance, an ordinary day with nothing special about it. Yet suddenly it makes us realize we had drifted away from ourselves without noticing. People say truth never knocks loudly. It arrives quietly. But once it touches you, its mark is impossible to forget. In those moments, you understand you are more tired than you admit, lonelier than you show, and longing for something more honest than what you have been holding on to. You begin to see a small crack in your life, a crack you once labeled as pressure, responsibility, or choice. But now you recognize it as the place where your heart has been calling for help. The moment you see the truth is also the moment you see yourself, not the version you present to the world, but the one trembling inside. And though it hurts, that pain carries a strange kind of beauty, because it reminds you that you can still feel, still hope, still want a life that aligns with your deepest beliefs. When truth becomes clear, everything around you seems quieter, as if life is giving you space to breathe with your own breath again. You understand you can no longer walk forward on autopilot, that what you call stability is sometimes just endurance wrapped in habit. And then you realize that changing your life does not always require a grand event. Sometimes all it takes is one moment slightly longer than usual for your heart to whisper that you deserve a different path. Truth does not break you. It simply demands honesty. And the moment you dare to look at it without fear, you start to see the door you had forgotten, the one waiting to lead you back to yourself. There are things in life that endure no matter how much the world changes. Old stories, quiet traditions, simple teachings, passed down in soft voices, yet strong enough to survive across generations. People often say, history never repeats itself exactly, but it always leaves traces to remind us of something greater than our own lives. When we are lost, we do not always find answers in the present. Sometimes we look back instead, as if the past carries a light the present has forgotten. There are old pages, lessons we heard as children, or a single sentence someone before us once said that suddenly becomes the solution to our own life. History has its own way of whispering to those who know how to listen through stories of resilience, of failure, of faith, and of the moments when people rose again from places that seemed beyond saving. When we look back, we realize that pain, loss, and unexpected turns have never been ours alone. They have happened to countless others before us, and somehow that makes us feel less alone. History is not just a collection of years gone by. It is a mirror where we see reflections of ourselves in those who lived long before. They too were afraid. They too lost their way. They too were exhausted to the point of wanting to stop. And yet they kept going. And because they kept going, we now have paths to walk. When we understand this, we see that we are also part of that current, a small piece of a much larger story that future generations will continue to write. And once we realize we are not the first to stumble, strength begins to return to us. History does more than show us where humanity has been. It shows us the direction our hearts have been longing to move toward. There are prophecies that were never meant to predict the future, but to awaken us from the long sleep of fear and habit. They do not arrive with noise or mysticism or miraculous promises. They come as simple truths humanity has whispered to itself since ancient times. There is an old saying that a true warning does not change destiny. It changes the way we see ourselves, and sometimes that alone is enough to transform a life. When we walk through loss, when once beautiful hopes begin to fade, we start listening more deeply to things we once dismissed as vague. The prophecies of the past, whether wrapped in religion, legend, or lived experience, all share one thing in common. They touch the part of us that knows life holds mysteries beyond what reason can explain. We hear of light returning after darkness, of redemption waiting for the patient, of the truth that no night lasts forever, without dawn waiting at the end. And whether or not these words are literally true has never been the point. They bring us the sense that we are not wandering alone in this world. Sometimes a single ancient sentence is enough to stir a weary heart, reminding it that humanity has always survived the impossible. Prophecies do not awaken us through certainty, but through the belief that everything has meaning, even the missteps. They remind us that every soul has a path to complete, a lesson to learn, and that the pain we carry is not punishment, but preparation for something greater. When we listen to these words with the heart instead of the mind, we suddenly feel a strength return to us, as if a distant but unmistakable voice is calling, reminding us that the road ahead still holds light, waiting for us to find. A person always stands on a thin line, where darkness and light touch like two sides of the same soul. Every choice made, every thought nurtured, every belief held quietly, pulls the heart toward one direction or the other. Confidence may feel solid, yet the smallest event can tilt an entire world toward the very place one feared. The human spirit resembles a half-open door, allowing light to enter at any moment, yet leaving just enough space for darkness to slip in and cover everything. Moments of weakness reveal that strength is never as absolute as imagined, and despair is never as final as feared. Both sides live within us at once. A deep wound can cast life into a gray shadow, while a single act of kindness can pull someone back toward brightness. A mistake can weigh heavily on the conscience, but one moment of forgiveness, one honest confrontation with oneself, can bring back a gentleness thought lost forever. Darkness is not an enemy to conquer, but an unhealed part of the self, hidden away out of shame or fear. Light is the part we grow day by day through love, kindness, and moments of truthfulness. Looking back, a person often realizes how many times they were saved by small things no one else noticed. A soft word, a presence beside them at the exact moment they were falling apart. A quiet day arriving unexpectedly after weeks of struggle. These things may not change destiny, but they reshape the heart, and the heart shapes the path forward. No one belongs fully to darkness or fully to light. Life moves through countless small choices. Sometimes we stumble, sometimes we lose our way, but each moment of rising, even a small one, brings the light closer. And when we finally find the courage to face both sides within ourselves, something shifts. The light reveals it never left. It was simply waiting for the heart to open and step toward it once more. There comes a moment in every human life, a moment no one can avoid, when we realize we cannot keep living the way we have, cannot continue clinging to old fears, cannot stay hidden behind the shell that life and our own choices have built around us. In that moment, everything we once held tightly suddenly feels weightless, while the things we once overlooked rise into sharp, unexpected importance. We begin to see how many years we spent chasing what exhausted the heart, forgetting that what we were searching for was never out in the world. It lived quietly in our own breath, in the rhythm of our own heartbeat. An old saying reminds us that the path home is always right where we stand, and we need only turn back a single step. And when that truth settles into us, life feels gentler than it ever did before. Every pain that brought us to our knees, every fall that felt impossible to rise from, every person who entered our life and eventually left, none of it came to take something from us. All of it came to return us to the most honest version of ourselves. Looking back, we realize we were never truly abandoned. Every event, every loss, every turning point brought us here, to this moment where the heart opens and sees that we were never lost children wandering in the dark, but human beings slowly learning the meaning of their own existence. Life never hands us a map. It gives us signs, people, disruptions, and it is the way we respond that draws the road beneath our feet. When this becomes clear, we stop fearing the darkness behind us and stop placing too much hope in the light ahead. Instead, we start noticing the reality of the step we are taking right now, the honesty of each breath, the truth in every feeling. We begin forgiving ourselves for the mistakes we made, for what we could not change, for the things we stayed in too long, and even for those who hurt us, because we finally understand that no one can offer us what we refuse to offer ourselves. The peace we have been searching for was never hidden in anyone's promise. It lived in the moment we could stand before our own reflection without turning away. And when we reach that point, we see clearly that the universe never turned its back on us. It was simply waiting for us to be ready to hear the sound of our own calling. The calling that tells us we deserve fullness, we deserve tenderness, we deserve a life our heart can smile at when remembering. And here, in this very moment, we finally understand. The real journey was never about discovering the outside world, but about rediscovering our own name in a life we had abandoned too many times before.